Okay, it's today's edition of Have a Good Time. I'm your host, John Davey, and I hope that you're having a good time. So I've just been doing this self-authoring thing. You can find it at selfauthoring.com, and it's a pretty good service. It's like this program that asks you, developed by a number of psychologists. This guy, one of them, who's professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Jordan Peterson. He's been in the news in the last year or so for as an advocate for free speech. He sort of got famous on YouTube for fighting with people who are essentially opposed to free speech. So and he's developed this big platform. Anyway, he's one of the people that developed this thing called self-authoring, and I purchased the group of programs, suites, I guess you could call them, the whole suite of these self-authoring things, and basically it just asks you a bunch of questions about yourself and your goals, the sort of like direction you want your life to go in, and it asks you questions like internal ones, how you're going to implement these goals in a broader sense. And it's been really good. So I was just on this section. Basically, it has you write out eight sort of broader goals that you want to achieve for yourself. And I've been reading Scott Adams's book. I just finished it, actually, called How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. And it's been pretty influential just in my approach to my sort of daily routine and things of that nature. He talks a lot about systems versus goals. And so if I sort of just plug in system rather than goal into this self-authoring thing, it sort of helps me approach it or think about it in a different way. So, for instance, one of the goals that I was just writing about was sort of maintaining my health. That's one goal. And the series of questions the self-authoring thing asks you is it's important. It says, like, for instance, I'm just looking at it now. So, let's see here. Considering detailed strategies for goal attainment. So if we just take the word goal out and plug in system, how are you going to apply this system to what you do in your everyday life? So let's every time I say system here, it says goals within this particular program, but let's just say, so systems are related to smaller sub goals, I guess you could say, and behaviors, as well as connected to higher order, more important abstract goals within this system. Sub goals are easier to achieve, but are still fundamental to reaching our great aspirations. Sub goals can thus be thought of as strategies for greater goal achievement. I guess what he's describing here, let me just pause and unquote here, that he's describing a system, essentially. So these small goal attainment is sort of foundational for it's like the first layer, I guess. It's foundational to working within a framework or a system rather than being specifically goal oriented. I guess you could think of being goal oriented as trying to climb to the top of a particularly difficult tree to climb. Maybe that's a bad analogy, but that's the one I'm going to go with. If you're trying to climb this one particular tree, well, you may get to the top or you might not. If it's particularly challenging to climb this one tree, maybe you'll never get to the top. But if you have a system that says, I'm going to climb trees, then your opportunity I'm going to climb to the top of trees, then your opportunity for success expands by a gigantic amount, basically. So maybe you can't get to the top of that tree, but if your system is I climb to the top of trees, then you're going to be able to find other opportunities where maybe that one particular tree doesn't it is not climbable or is more challenging to climb. But if you say, I want to climb to the top of trees, and then you may have some reasons for that. I want to see farther. I want to collect, the berries that are growing at the top of the trees that are maybe harder to reach. I want to find birds' nests or whatever. Then your opportunities for success within the framework of that system become much greater than if you were trying to achieve one specific goal. And I kind of tend to think about this in terms of my back when I was doing music, my music career. I kind of, I have a little bit of back and forth about this in my own mind, but one of the things is that, I was operating, I did have a system when back in that day. But it was sort of in the context of one specific goal. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe that's getting too meta or something, but here's what I'm talking about. So my idea was I want to be a full-time musician. That's all I want to do. And so I kind of built my life up around being able to achieve that one particular goal. And the system I was operating within that, not to go too far down to the sort of, molecular level or whatever, but the system I was operating in within that sort of specific goal was that as long as I was being a musician, my sort of like level of, or my measures of success didn't have to be anything specific. So I kind of left it open, this broad thing, which I think in some ways allowed me to be happy within that context or content to maybe a higher degree than if I had said, I'm going to play at Madison Square Garden one day, and I'm going to play to an audience of X number of people, and I want to, fly on a private jet to wherever, So as long as I was just doing it, the sort of that itself was the measure of success rather than any particular measures of success being the goal, like a certain amount of money or whatever. So, that was good in sort of keeping me content within that context. But the goal was still so specific, like, in terms of a career, that I think I was doing that sort of to the exclusion of a lot of other things I could have been doing and skills that I could have been acquiring to meet greater success. So now, on the tail end of this, this is not a complaint, by the way, but I do find myself sort of on the it's like all of that work in order to achieve that one specific goal of like being a musician for my career, sort of that momentum that I built up and gained in pursuit of that one particular goal rather than having a broader goal was, I find now not as useful. It's kind of like the if you're trying to achieve prestige, prestige is only valuable, I would say, if in the context of it being a continual process and ever gaining, like prestige is only good if you can leverage it to gain more prestige. The thing in itself doesn't really that thing in itself doesn't really have any particular value to it, like recognition from people and, sort of like having sort of cultural or social indicators of success isn't really valuable in itself, only in the context of, how it relates to other things. So it's kind of a relative thing. And so my, this other relative thing of that I was sort of participating in, it's like, being, well liked and recognized by other musicians and stuff like that, that I looked up to or respected. That I find now that I'm sort of have a broader idea of what success in my own personal life means. That's that achievement of like success in that particular context doesn't mean as much as it once did. So, and that's that's okay. But now that I'm now that I'm sort of I'm like I said in the last episode, now that I'm sort of like cleaning bathrooms and vacuuming floors in commercial buildings, that being respected as a songwriter in this context and this sort of portion of my life, it doesn't have the same sort of emotional significance that it did at that point in my life. And I think if I became more music oriented again, then and sort of brought that specific goal back into my life, like I want to do this one particular thing, and it's gonna be I want to be a musician. I'm gonna be the best musician and all this stuff. Then or the best songwriter and singer that I can be, and I'm going to garner all this success, then I would try to, if that was my goal, I would maybe try to shore up some of that emotional, or that emotional is not the right word, that gained momentum and prestige that I had in what seems kind of like a former life. And I would try to utilize that to double down on my efforts to do that one particular thing. I don't really see that happening. So at this point, I think I have a broader system for, descriptors of like what success means. So right now, I'm very oriented towards making money and making different streams of income accessible to myself, and sort of creating some ways of like passive income. I've been like investing, tried to get all my music under one roof to be able to sort of market it in the event. By the way, that I should say, you can find all of my music now at johndavy.bandcamp.com. So that's another sort of like strategy. Now the music thing, more than it was before, sort of fits into a bigger picture of, a broader range of like, this is what success means. So, I have this goal in this self-authoring thing. One of my first ones was, one of my first major goals, or your system, you could say, was like make some money, maintain my health, have, increasingly more positive interactions with my wife and stuff like that. So that's part of this bigger goal. So I think that's a good start for now. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Share it with a friend if you think this idea of like goals versus systems is interesting. And check out Scott Adams' book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. It's a really good book. It's a pretty broad overview, but it's funny. It's witty. It's easy to read, and there's a lot of valuable information packed in there. So that's my book recommendation. And again, if you want to find my music for purchase or just stream it and listen to it, you can find it at johndavy.bandcamp.com, and there's links there to my social network and stuff like that. So thanks for listening to Have a Good Time, and I hope you have a good time. Signing off, John Davy.